Well, good morning. It is Wednesday, May the 1st. Welcome to May, by the way. We're live at the HCCTV studios this morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Todd Duplantis and joined live by Dr. Lana Pagao.
Good
Welcome.
morning.
Welcome to the studio.
I know. What an experience. I love
We actually do have a studio here.
Isn't that
I know
great? I know.
for the last couple of years, you've been joining us virtually online.
Absolutely have.
And so now she's getting the HCCTV studio experience. And it's been kind of a crazy morning here.
Oh my goodness, it has been a
I
crazy
know everything
morning.
that could go wrong has gone wrong, but we're on the air and it's good to have you with us this morning. So, all right, we've got a good show lined up for the next half hour. We've got all your HCC news and information, some special guests, but you're watching us now on Facebook Live and YouTube. We're here just about every morning when we're live on HCC TV. You can also catch us on social media just about any time.
That's right. We are live on Houston Community College District Facebook page, not HCC. We're also on YouTube. We're on X, LinkedIn, and HCC TV at noon, 5 and 10 p.m. Monday through Friday.
All right, let's get this show started. We've got a couple of special guests coming your way. One of them, May is Stop the Bleed Month. So for Good Works Wednesday, and we're going to go to this camera right here now, Good Works Wednesday, we're discussing the #1 cause of preventable death after injury, which is bleeding. We've got Gail Gould, who is the founder, the CPR Lady, and the Safety Lady. Good to have you with us, Gail. Welcome to the show this morning. I think your mic is muted. There you go.
Okay, yes, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, so I know you've got a lot of important information to share. I did not realize, but bleeding, I guess, of course, is the #1 cause of death, I learned yesterday, after a major injury. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. And you know what, Todd? It's 2024. We all need to know how to control life-threatening bleeding. I don't think people realize a person could bleed to death in as little as 5 minutes. And so, it's 2024. And, unfortunately, sometimes these mass shootings get so much attention.
Right.
But these types of injuries can pretty much happen anywhere. They can happen in the home. They can happen in the workplace, the school, on the road. So go ahead.
Well, we've got a lot to cover in your segment. So I'm going to ask you to stand by. We've got another interview and we're going to be with you in about 10 minutes. So it sounds like a lot of great information.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to turn things over to Lana right now because you've got a special guest, Lana, who's going to talk about an upcoming performance produced by our studio, by our students.
Yeah. We have, this morning, we have Shani Diouf. She is dance faculty at HCC Northwest. Welcome to the show, Shani.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we'll discuss the dance program with you shortly, but first let's talk about Taste of Dance. Let's start with when and where that's going to be held.
Yeah, sure. That's happening this coming Friday in 2 days, actually, at 7:30 p.m. in the Black Box Theater at HCC Northwest Spring Branch campus.
So tell us a little about what this involves for students.
Well, it's very exciting because this is essentially a fully student-produced show, and it's part of the core curriculum requirements for the students who are pursuing the associates in dance. So they've created the choreography, they've coordinated their costumes, music. The entire show is student-produced.
Okay, so what exactly does it mean that it's student produced? We know that they perform in it, but what do you mean by they produce it?
All of the creative concepts are coming from the students. In other words, typically when we have a performance, we might invite in guest choreographers from the community. I may set choreography, but in this instance, the students, all of the choreography that you'll see is coming from the students. And they've also coordinated their own costuming. I'm just there to guide them and give them feedback, but the students are basically producing the show, in other words.
So let's talk about the course outcomes for students who enrolled in this course. Can you tell us about the outcomes for the students?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have my list with me, but typically this course, just from memory, they're encouraged to go through the rehearsal process. They're encouraged to achieve technique on an intermediate level. They're encouraged to work through any difficulties or challenges that they encounter with rehearsals, which we do oftentimes encounter challenges with rehearsals. They're encouraged to create the choreography, as I said before, coordinate their own music, their technical rehearsals, choose all of their own lighting. All of that is a part of the course outcomes.
That sounds great. Tell us about the overall dance program at HCC, because HCC has a really great performing arts program, and dance is part of that program, part of that center of excellence.
Yeah, we have an amazing program. I've actually been at the Spring Branch campus for 17 years. We offer several courses like ballet, modern, jazz, tap, world dance, which is focused on Africa and the diaspora, composition, improvisation, practicum, the performance ensemble. We even have an online course called Dance Appreciation, which is a lecture course. And we also have the associates, where the students can take, of course, their basic courses, academic courses, and then they have a series of dance courses that they take in order to receive the associates in arts with a focus on dance that they can take to a university. We've had several students continue on to University of Houston, St. Thomas, University of Texas to pursue their bachelor's in dance.
So what can a student who has a degree in dance, what are the career opportunities for those students?
There's so many different career opportunities. Of course, you can take the route that I took, which is continuing to receive your MFA, and now I'm doing my PhD so that you can teach on a college level. We have several students that go the professional route and dance professionally. That could be on Broadway, it could be on a cruise ship. There's so many different options. And then we have dance movement science, where students go ahead and do Pilates, gyrotonic, several different ways to help other dancers, or even we've had dancers, some of my former students that have gone into physical therapy, which is amazing to have a physical therapist that's a former dancer. Some places like Houston Ballet and some major dance companies prefer physical therapists that are dancers. Costuming, photography, videography. There's so many different options for dancers.
You know, my daughter was a dancer since she was a toddler, and I've got to tell you that the discipline in not just practicing, but her muscles she was always moving, and she always moved very elegantly, and so I would imagine that dancers have to be very fit.
Well, I mean, dancing all day from when I was training from 9 in the morning with maybe an hour or two break till sometimes 8 or 9 at night, 5 or 6 days a week is very strenuous on the body. But there's a lot of focus on injury prevention. And so, especially with ballet and some of the stretching that we do, a lot of football players take time out to take ballet classes to complement their training on the field.
You know, that's true. I took a modern dance class in college, and half the class was the football players and the volleyball players. So I would imagine.
Yes, it's true.
Well, thank you, Shani Diouf of the dance faculty at HCC at Northwest, and we'll have your information in our post after the show. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you again so much for having me.
All right, we're going to move on. It is May is Stop the Bleed month, and we've got a very special guest that's joining us right now. And Gail Gould is the founder of the CPR and Safety Lady. Once again, welcome back to the show, Gail. You were talking about earlier. We were discussing briefly about mass shootings. People don't really think about this, but I mean, obviously, it's a reality in this world. But you know, I've noticed, at least in my household, I tend to be kind of clumsy when I'm cutting things for dinner or something. And I've actually had to buy these gloves that I wear so I won't cut off a finger, which I've come close to at times.
Oh my gosh.
You know, stopping the bleed is a big deal, because usually I'm just like, I'll sit there for maybe 10 seconds looking, how the heck did I do that? Obviously, you know, this is a big thing, whether or not, you know, hopefully, God forbid, we're involved in a mass shooting. But just in common household injuries, bleeding happens right when you don't think it's going to happen.
Well, that's exactly right. I'm very interested to know what gloves you purchase, because I'm always cutting myself when I'm cooking too. And I keep lots of Band-Aids downstairs. But honestly, Todd, I've met people in my CPR first aid classes who told me they were using mandolins or slicers. And
Yeah.
I've had a few people tell me they actually had to create a tourniquet in the kitchen with a towel because they cut themselves so badly while bleeding. So you're absolutely right. You know, these mass shootings get so much attention, but these things can happen in home, in the workplace, on the road. You know, there's stabbings, there's bombings, there's natural disasters. There's lots of places where this can happen, and everyone needs to know how to control life-threatening bleeding, because a person could bleed to death in as little as 5 minutes.
Wow.
And so yeah, it's and what's interesting to me now, just what's going on in the world, all school nurses now have tourniquets.
Yeah.
And because, you know, just what's happening, you know, going back to the mass shootings, I'm recommending that all of my clients keep tourniquets in their first aid kits. We used to just recommend it for Class A. Now we're recommending tourniquets pretty much for everybody. And it's just, you know, of course, the first step, if you do notice life-threatening bleeding, is to call 911. And the second step then, of course, is to be able to recognize it and to be able to control it. So the first line of defense to controlling bleeding, Todd, is you're going to apply pressure. You're going to apply pressure and possibly wrap it and elevate. If that doesn't work, then you can use a technique what we call packing the wound. And you literally just take some sterile gauze and pack inside the wound and apply pressure. If that's not doing the job and the bleeding is from an extremity such as an arm or a leg, then you can use a tourniquet. And basically you just put the tourniquet 2 inches above where they're bleeding and you tighten it until the bleeding stops. And
well, imagine, you know, if, you know, all of us, you're in the kitchen, you cut your hand open, you know, and your spouse is there with you. You don't have any sterile gauze available. I guess a clean dish towel will do, or something like that. Anything that you can pack the wound, but elevate. It sounds like applying pressure and elevate is very important, especially in the early stages.
well, you're exactly right. And honestly, most bleeding will stop with simple compression elevation. But if that doesn't do the job, then you'll need to pack the wound. I actually, about 3 months ago, there was a preschool teacher in one of my classes at a preschool that told me she was in Midtown around 1 a.m. and the guy next to her got shot. And she said no one was helping him. So she said she literally just took his T-shirt and packed his T-shirt into the wound and applied pressure until the police arrived.
Well, you know, it's interesting you mentioned that, because it reminds me of a quick story. And my late wife was a school nurse for 20 some odd years. And I remember her talking about the tourniquets and all the courses she had to take, which you're going to mention a few of those in a few moments. But we were having coffee in the Heights, very popular coffee place. I'm not going to mention the name of it. And we're sitting there, and this is about 10 years ago, and we heard some popping noises right next door. And we got up, we heard people screaming. She heard somebody's been shot. Is there a doctor around? And we're kind of sitting there. I look at her and she looks at me and she goes, you know, I got to go over there and take a look at that. I'm like, don't just stay away. We don't know what's going on. She went over and the guy had been shot in the stomach. And, you know, she was able to at least, you know, get some pressure on it. There, she said, ironically, she said, Todd, there wasn't a lot of blood coming out of it. It just went straight through him. Police came to the scene. Ambulance, all that. The guy did survive. They did catch the guy who shot him. But it's, you know, those instances, I guess these life-saving techniques you learn, they can come up in real life, because I've witnessed it happen myself.
Well, they absolutely can come up in real life. And, you know, as I said in the beginning, it's 2024. We all need to know how to control life-threatening bleeding. And, you know, one of the things that I talk about in my CPR first aid classes is that, you know, no one expects you to act like a doctor, nurse, or paramedic. You're there just to assist the victim until advanced help arrives. And it's just like with CPR training. You know, you're there just to hopefully keep the person's heart, brain, and lungs alive until advanced help can arrive. And it's the same thing with controlling bleeding. So you're right. May is Stop the Bleed Month, and Stop the Bleed is actually a course that was developed by the American College of Physicians and American College of Surgeons because they realized that there was a need that lay people, non-healthcare providers, needed to know how to control bleeding. Because if someone starts bleeding out, you can bleed to death in as little as 5 minutes. Some people say 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I generally say 5 minutes. So, for instance, just last spring, I facilitated 6 Stop the Bleed courses at a local TV station here in Houston. And the reason they wanted to do that, they wanted to train their staff, was their sister station in Florida about a year before, it had a reporter shot and killed on the job. And so I was so thrilled to be there. Everybody there was so interested to learn, and it was a great experience.
You also have other courses, which I mentioned. There are a number of courses you could take besides Stop the Bleed, CPR, choking relief. Maybe you can tell us about a few of those courses, because that can help you in all throughout life, especially if you have children. I know there's a choking relief course as well.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I personally think it should be required for all parents to take CPR before baby comes home from the hospital, but I'm currently not in charge, so that's not a requirement. So I train a lot of new and expectant parents in CPR, but all parents need to know how to perform CPR. Everybody needs to know how to perform choking relief, known as the Heimlich maneuver. And you're right, I do have a digital course called How to Help Your Choking Child. And it trains people what to do, God forbid, your child is choking. I have a bloodborne pathogen course. I have a brand new course that I've been facilitating for about 9 months called Active Violence Emergency Response Training. And that is a 3-hour interactive course that teaches people how to defend themselves against active shooters.
And you also have courses about responding to heart attacks and managing seizures. It seems just in the news now, you're hearing over, and I'm not going to mention any causes, but you hear more and more about younger people having heart issues, especially over the last, 18 months or so.
Well, what that's all about, and there's so much confusion about that, and I'm glad you brought that up. A heart attack and cardiac arrest are not the same thing. A heart attack, the person is conscious, they're breathing, they need immediate medical attention. Cardiac arrest, you're unconscious, you're not breathing, you need immediate CPR, early defibrillation. But I think what you're referring to, like with what happened with Damar Hamlin and LeBron James, and what happened to them, they had abnormal arrhythmias. And with LeBron James, he had an abnormal arrhythmia that no one knew about, even though he's an elite athlete. I'm sure he's had 3 or 4 EKGs throughout his life, but he had what's called he had an undetected arrhythmia that was not detected by EKG. Damar Hamlin got hit in the chest at a very specific moment in his heart cycle called the CT cycle, and it caused an abnormal arrhythmia called commococcio cordis. But you know what, Todd? I encourage all parents, whether your kid's an athlete or not, to get an EKG screening twice when they're teenagers, because teenagers often have these abnormal arrhythmias that no one knows about, and it causes them to go into cardiac arrest. 1 in 300 student athletes has an undetected heart problem, just like Bronny James.
Well, it's a good point you brought up, because I worked in the news industry, and it seemed like every year we always had the issue of a student athlete tragically dying on the field, whether it's hot weather or not, during practice, during a game. We've seen it live with Damar Hamilton on TV, and it's good to have people nearby, whether they're first responders or parents, that can know how to respond to this. But on, like you're talking about, get those kids in for the EKG. It may not always tell them everything, but it could give them an early warning sign.
Well, that's exactly right. I know my son, last summer when he was 19, I took him down to Alief Community Center, and he received an EKG through the Cody Stevens Foundation. And I know the guy that runs these screenings, his name is Scott Stevens, and he told me out of 400 kids that he screened last summer, out of 408 needed further testing. So it's about 2%. And so, people, even pediatricians will poo-poo this, say, oh, it's not necessary. There was a 15-year-old girl out of Katy Taylor High School just last summer who was in College Station for a cheer camp. And when the cheer coach couldn't wake her up, she called the mom back here in Houston. She's like, is your daughter difficult to wake up? The mom said never. The daughter had died in her sleep from long QT syndrome, which is a deadly arrhythmia. And it was so sad because the mom, I saw her interviewed on the news, and she said they opted out of the EKG during the sports physical. She said, had we done the EKG, it most likely would have identified this deadly arrhythmia and she might still be here. So it really is important. In fact, I think Katy ISD now is actually purchasing EKG screens, EKG machines is going to screen all kids, at least screen all athletes. Really, really important.
And real quickly, I know it's very easy nowadays to get an EKG. People may say, well, it's going to cost me a lot. You know, Apple Watch and your heart doctor, you can do it online these days. My dad's had his done through his Apple Watch, and not to promote Apple Watches, but you know, there are running fairs, which I've gone to, where they performed free EKG.
Right. That's exactly
so
right.
They're out there, they're available. Look for them if you can't afford them. Very important information. Gail Gould, your information is available on Instagram, Facebook. We've also got your website. We're going to put all that information in your handles for Instagram and Facebook in our social media post after the show.
Thank you so much, Todd. I enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you. Very important information to know,
Absolutely.
especially if you've got kids like you do.
Yeah, my son just had his sports checkup. And they did that. They made sure that they checked his heart. Yeah, that's really important.
It's important these days. We've got a few announcements we're going to go through. One of them involves May being Mental Health Awareness Month. It's a central workshop at the Central College, HCC's Counseling and Ability Services, as well as its partner, NAMI Greater Houston, will launch Mental Health Awareness Month with wellness information and tips. Attendees will also receive snacks, which means food, treats, and giveaways, noon to 1:30 p.m. That's today, folks, at the HCC Central Harmon Building, room 101. We'll have some information after our post. And it's that time of year again, Lana. We've got student juried exhibitions across the college right now.
Yeah, and if you haven't gotten over there to see what the students have created this year, this is your last chance. It ends this week. Our visual arts expands the horizons through art. So come out and enjoy in-person exhibitions that feature and celebrate the works of studio art students. And that is now through Friday, which is May 3rd. Receptions and locations vary by campus, and it's free. No registration is required, and we'll have that information up on our post after the show.
Ableton Live Workshop. Students can learn how to make music with Ableton in this workshop that touches on music theory, creating beats, sampling, remixing, and much more. It's a live, unique session and arrangement that's being held by HCC Professor Nate Robinson. It's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturdays, June the 8th and the 15th. You have some time to prepare for that. It's at your neck of the woods, Lana, HCC Northwest Spring Branch Performing Arts Center. Registration information is in our post after the show. And we have the juried exhibitions. We also have a media arts showcase that's happening as well.
Yes, that time of the year for our students to show off what they've done. So it's our spring student screenings. It's time for the end of the semester public screenings of student projects from the media arts programs, including those from filmmaking, audio recording technology, and music business. The showcase is from TV field and production, lighting, cinematography, directing, and audio recording projects. And that's May 11th. That's a Saturday. Mixers at 6 p.m., which means refreshments. And the showcase is at 7 p.m. and that is at HCC Northwest Spring Branch Performing Arts Center. Registration is not necessary. Everyone's welcome, and we'll have that information on our post after the show.
HCC is currently offering citizenship courses at 3 campuses for only $25. Individuals can take U.S. citizenship preparation classes. They're happening 6 to 8 p.m. Fridays through June 14th. All sets at the East Side campus. And then Northline and Braze Oaks from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Saturdays through June 15th. Check our post after the show for more info. And Lana, we've got fall registration underway already.
Yep, registration.
In spring.
Yeah, can you believe it?
All that at once.
Registration for the fall semester has now officially started, with regular and smaller semesters offered in a variety of programs. Like all of HCC's courses for the summer and fall, they are offered online anytime, online on a schedule, hybrid, in-person, and hybrid labs. And to learn more about HCC programs, start dates, and options to cover costs, go to hccs.edu/apply.
So tomorrow on the show, we've got Dr. Min Hee of Coleman's Histologic program. She'll be returning to talk about diagnosing all sorts of things, but mainly cancer, since next month is National Cancer Awareness Month. And for Thursday Family Fun Day, we'll welcome the San Jacinto Museum. They're always fun to have on the show. They'll be talking about Texas's independence from Mexico, which was only the beginning of our state's story. Lana, great to have you in the studio.
It's great being
Yeah,
here.
so maybe you can schedule some more meetings at district on the days you're on the
I'll
air.
try doing
Yeah,
that.
see what you can hit people up for some, and you get to be out of the office for a little while during the day as well. We want to thank everyone for being here this morning. We're live just about every morning when HCC is in session at 10 a.m. And tomorrow, Shardae's on the show. Is she on tomorrow? Yes, Shardae is going to be on the show tomorrow. She runs a very tight ship. It starts at 10 a.m. Make sure you're here. She'll be live. See you then.